I got some criticism for our B&G video. That's not a 10. Darn it. What is that? That's an 11. That doesn't work. All right, everybody, welcome back. It's Ben. I'm in the shop. Hey, I've got a B&G here. I got some criticism on the last video where I repaired one of these. I want to show you real quick what happened. It's cold here, and one of the guys forgot their sprayer in their truck, and it froze. Now, these are very susceptible to freezing. So the main failure points on these is going to be the wand. So this section right here. You'll see right here that it's bulged. That's where the ice has expanded it, and it hasn't split there, but this one's bulged also. And you look right there and it busted out right there. We did have another one this year that broke. This piece right here, they actually got lucky because it split this brass piece, which is just a connector from the hose to the wand. And that's a cheap part. So those are just a single part. This one, however, is going to require a whole new wand. They run about, I don't know, 40, 45 bucks, depending on where you buy them. And you got to take it all apart to do it. So I'm going to show you how to do that today. All right, so here's the part that we need. It's a, this is an 18-inch wand on this one. So it's a VE 155, 18-inch. And it comes just with the wand. So this is a brass one. Comes with a little plastic retainer on the end to protect the threads. And then this threaded section here. So it looks really simple, but you do have to take it completely apart to get to it. What I'm not going to cover is rebuilding the pump itself. This one was rebuilt recently, but I am going to cover rebuilding from here down. So first thing you got to do is loosen your handle on your wand. So I'm just going to get that out of the way. I'm going to get the pump out of the way. So I've got my filter, which isn't completely clean, my handle, my trigger, my wand assembly, and my tip. We're going to reuse a lot of this stuff, but we're going to clean it up and make sure that everything works properly. So the first part I'm removing is this green filter. The next thing we got to do is get in here to this retaining clip that's on your set screw or your safety screw. And to do that, you're going to open it about halfway. Figure out which way it comes off, and then get yourself a pair of needle nose, get in there and grab it. Okay, so your retaining clip looks like that. We're gonna set that aside. And then you're able to unscrew the end. Next, we can take the trigger off and the end piece off, which you know, your tip just unscrews. So you've got your retaining ring and your tip. And then this is under trigger pressure. So you'll want to hold your trigger and then unscrew this. So I'm going to set it in my vise here. So I'm going to hold pressure on the trigger, and then I'm just going to loosen this up. There we go. Now there's a couple parts in there. You've got your set seal and then your swivel on the end. So you're going to want to clean and make sure everything is good on these parts. We'll go through those, but this we're going to replace. This comes in a rebuild kit. So I bought a complete rebuild kit. I've already robbed the pump parts out of it. So I'm just left with the parts that'll do the trigger and the wand itself. All right, next we're going to want to take off our handle. 2 flathead screwdrivers, one on each side. You're just going to loosen this nut. Well, the screw. One side is a screw and the other side is a threaded portion. So it's just a little guy. Don't want to lose that. That's the one that we always lose. And then this cylinder comes right out of the trigger itself. So you got your threaded section, and then the other side is a screw head. Now we can work this trigger off. So you've got to get it to the back of the handle and then twist it sideways and it'll come off. We're gonna release these parts here. So there's a set screw and a nut that retains it. So we're just gonna grab the nut On the end of the set screw is a flathead. We're just gonna loosen that off. I just get it loose and then I can spin it by hand. And that's on the end of the cable. You're gonna need that. So there's that part. And then we're gonna take this retaining nut off. Okay, so next we're gonna get this packing nut out. You can use a wrench, a 10mm wrench, but you're only gonna be able to move it so far with the handle the way it is. So I like to set a little 10mm socket on there, and then I just slide my ratchet through there. Once it's loose, it's pretty easy. Now, this B&G has been triple rinsed, flushed. It's still got debris and dirt, but the reason I'm not wearing gloves is because he cleaned it out for me. I'd rather work on it without having to wear gloves, just because it makes more sense to me. Now, there is probably some residual inside, so when you're handling the cable or the end pieces, you may want to consider wearing gloves, depending on how well it's clean. But we're going to try and clean up some of this residue on everything before we put it back together. So I think right now I'm going to go ahead and glove up before I start working on the cable. So next, we've got to get the seat screw out of it, which I'm just pushing the cable in and revealing the other end. It's got a nut and then the seat, and then inside there's a spring. So we're gonna just grab, so I'm gonna hold this set nut, and then I'm just gonna break this free so we can unscrew that end. And then I can take the little retaining nut off. And yes, you have to take it all off in order to get the cable out to get the wand replaced. So there should be a spring in there. There it is. And then your cable. Now your cable will not come out this way because the section of cable here is shorter than the section of cable that's up here. So at this point I like to just undo the actual wand from the trigger assembly. So we just loosen that all the way off, and now it'll pull out. So now I've got just my wand and my cable, and you'll see this end is bigger and this end has a metal piece that's smaller, shorter. So we can pull this out from that end. This piece is done, and now we can start cleaning and reassembling with this one.
Few moments later.
So at this point all I've done is cleaned up my cable and inspected it. You want to check for any breaks in this protective coating. Sometimes these ends start separating real bad, and this one's probably almost done, but it still works, so I don't want to replace it yet. You can buy new cables, they're fairly cheap. Keep a couple of cables on hand. Here's the code for an 18-inch cable, VC153. But for now I'm going to put this one back in. So you've got to make sure you're putting it the right direction. So you've got your two ends. One is longer obviously than the other, the metal piece, the steel piece. And the shorter one has to feed through to this end of the cable. So you start on this end, feed it down, and it's a little bit longer than your wand. So you've got this piece here and this one here. First thing we're going to do is start assembling this side. So what I'm going to do is start using my kit of new pieces here. And I want to show you this. The spring is the first thing that needs to go in. Here's the old spring and then the new spring. So it's considerably longer with a new one. So this one's kind of been wore out, squished down. And that happens. So you do want to have good spring. So we'll put that in first. Next we're going to put on our little backing nut. And it's a little guy, so you thread it on there. All right, now this is the important part. You're going to thread it all the way on. And these are adjustable so you can fix your trigger where you want it. But what I do is go all the way on, and then I back it down. I want to see about 4 threads, from my experience, left over. And you can take it apart and readjust that if your trigger is not in the right spot. And I'll show you what I mean when we get to that point. You will want to inspect this piece, because what's going to happen is on your new seal, this is a rubber seal on the inside, and then this trigger piece sits down in that seal and stops the flow of water and product. So you got to make sure that this edge is not scratched or messed up, otherwise it'll leak. This one looks pretty good. I cleaned it a little bit. So we'll put that part on now. Just thread it all the way down to that backing nut. And then all we'll do is carefully tighten them together. Just snug them. That way it doesn't move. So we've got our spring, our little backing nut, and then our plunger. So we are ready to now start putting the trigger together. Now, all I've done is wash the trigger assembly at this point. Inside of this hole are what we call packing nuts. And get rid of the gloves now, since I've already gotten everything cleaned in a bucket. There are packing nuts down in here. They're white. This is what they look like new. Just little white packing nuts. And they slide over the cable and create a seal. So there's 3 of them. I do want to replace those, so I'm going to get those out. A couple of ways to do them. You're going to need, I've got a couple of picks. This is the worst part. It's getting these out. They do not like to comb. All right, so there's 1. There's 2. Go. And then the last one coming right out. There we go. There's 3. Make sure we get any debris out of there. So now you're going to put your new packing nuts down in there. You got to just make sure it's cleaned out in there. Okay, so now that we've got the packing nuts out of there, what we're going to do is I'm going to feed the cable and everything through and then put my packing nuts on. So we're going to put this through there and just loosely start connecting this. I realize it's not perfect yet, but I can at least get this put together, have access to the cable, which I'm going to want to put the end of it on to hold this side nice and tight so I can start sliding packing nuts on there. There's a couple ways to do this. You can just push it and hold it, or you can put the end piece on it, the retainer. I think just for this, I'm going to go ahead and put the retainer on. You can take your cable nut and just thread it on there carefully. This is not when it goes on, but it does help us to pull the cable and to get it flat over here so we can put our retainer on. I put my old seal on it just for now. Pull on the cable and then just start threading it on there. All we need is some pressure against that spring to hold our cable out. So I'm going to now take this nut back off. So I've just got my cable, and I'm going to start putting my packing nuts on. They slide on the cable. I like to not force them, but maybe thread them down the threads, because the most important thing is that seal that it creates on your cable. So you don't want to score the inside of your packing nuts at all. Once I get them past the threaded part, they just slide. So I'm just going to start sliding them in. Get the next one on. And then the final one. Okay. Once they're in there, the next part is your packing nut itself. This one is not new, but it's in decent shape. This surface is important. The older style has a little O-ring in there. This is a newer style, which is just a beveled surface. And that's designed to sit right against those packing nuts and seal. So that one looks good. We're just going to slide it on the end of our cable. And then we're going to push in and thread just a little bit. It's pushing those packing nuts into the bottom, and it's going to work them all the way in. And you will know, because they'll get really hard, you're not going to bottom this out. You will still likely see threads. And I don't tend to tighten this very much, more than I can with just my fingers, until I test it and see if there's any leaking or anything. If you do get a leak here, you don't tighten this very much at all, just ever so slightly. But that's going to be good enough for now. The cable moves back and forth through that. So now we can start assembling the rest of our trigger and see if we've got the right spacing. So next I'm going to put on the nut that goes before your trigger. This is your set nut for your trigger. I'm just going to spin that down quite a ways. This is actually what we unscrew to put back against the trigger itself. Now the trigger we'll put on sideways. It'll slide over right here, and then you can twist it and get it into place. And this is the bugger. At this point, I will put one side of my trigger screw in and just kind of hold it, because this guy is the hard one to put in. So your cable latch that your trigger sits on, you have to set it on your cable and then easy just start threading it onto the end of the cable without cross threading it. So I've got it threaded a little bit, and what we're trying to do is we're trying to get it to the right point so that the cable stops right where your safety nut stops. So we're going to thread this in, and before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and take off my seal that I put in there, and I'm going to put in my new seal. Now that I can hold the trigger to take the cable inside, the way this sits is the flat end and the flat end of your seal go together, and then your plunger comes down from the end of your cable and sits in that seal. So this is the way it sits. You'll pull your trigger, and then you'll thread it on, and it should just thread nice and easy with the trigger all the way pulled. Now, you do want this end piece positioned properly so that your spray tip is in the right spot and the fans will go the right way. And basically it needs to be in line with the cable this way. I'm going to put it, there's a piece right here for you to put a wrench on to hold the wand itself. I usually put that in the vise, and then I can hold the trigger end down here and get this close to where we want it. Maybe just a little bit closer. Get my wrench and just tighten it the rest of the way. If it doesn't go all the way, then I'll have to adjust it again. And it looks like it's about in the right spot. Now, on the end of this, there is a seal. And in the kit, the rebuild kit, you get a new one. It's a little black seal. If your tip ever leaks around itself or outside of the band itself, it's probably this seal. I like to replace these every time too. So I'm just going to pop that out. Throw that one away. Put the new one on. I've seen some people put a little bit of grease, but it fits in there pretty good. I'm going to put the tip on and the retaining ring. Make sure not to cross thread. Okay. I'm just going to snug that up for now. So the end is put back together. We've got to finish working on this part and adjusting our trigger. So what we know now is when the trigger is released, we want this set nut, or the safety screw, to hit this piece and not have it move either way, not have a gap. So when that sits and it's closed, that's about where it's going to be. I don't know how I guessed it, because I never do. But at this point, what you'll do is you'll just take this out and then use your screwdriver to adjust the end where you need it to be, because you want the trigger, when it's sitting in off position, to hit your safety screw just like that. So you can't push your trigger anymore, and it doesn't allow any fluid to come out. Once you get that set, you can move this set nut back against your trigger and then lock it against your set screw. So to do that, you'll have to take this back out, move your backing nut all the way back, and I'm going to set it in the vise so you can see. All I'm going to do is put my screwdriver on the end to hold it, and then I'm going to take and just snug them together. So now we should be able to, just when it stops, put our safety screw in, and it hits it and stops it from flowing. Now we still have to test it and make sure that it's in the right position, but I think we are. So now you can put the other side of your screw on your trigger in, and the retaining clip on this safety screw. So the black retaining clip, I usually back it out about halfway. Set the clip on there, and without flinging it across the room, you just slowly push it into that groove, and then that stops it from being able to screw all the way out again. And then you've got it so it stops your trigger. On this side, we just need to put our other screw in. So we'll get our little flat screw here. These are a pain when you lose them. So I like to put just a little bit of Loctite on it so that it doesn't come out. A little bit of thread lock on there, just so it doesn't unscrew on us. And that's not something that the manufacturer recommends, it's just something that I do because I've lost too many of these. And we're just gonna tighten that down. And it's longer, it's wider than the trigger itself, so you can snug it down nice and tight, and it shouldn't pinch your trigger at all. Last thing, I just want to check and make sure that I've got my wand tight and in the right position, so that it's straight with the handle itself. It's pretty close. So it looks like it's about where I want it now, and then it's straight. So now we can put our filter back in, connect it back to our hose. You do not want to over tighten these, you just want to snug it. All I do, I just set it in the vise and just snug it, just barely. Now we can put some water to it and test it. I'm just gonna put some water in it. Okay, now we'll just see how well she behaves. It does take a minute for the product to get all the way through, so I like to take the tip off and speed that up. Okay. There we go. And you want to check around your packing nut and your connections here and make sure that there's no drips. If it does tend to start dripping here, you'll just tighten that just ever so slightly. And this one appears to be good to go. I've got no drips or anything there. And it works good. So this one's fixed. So don't be afraid to work on your own B&G. The only other parts that we didn't use that came in that kit are these two seals. They're white seals. And then a larger one. These are for your hose itself. So this littler, fatter one goes right here at this connection. And then the other one goes right at the other end of the hose before it connects into this brass piece. So since those weren't leaking or problematic, I'm not going to change them out right now, but I'll keep them for the next time I have a hose leak in my toolbox. So what we replaced is we replaced the little brass seal, the seat seal. We replaced the 3 packing nuts, and we replaced the black seal on the end that seals from the end of your B&G wand to the tip itself. And we also replaced the spring. So the spring is important, it will wear out. So you do want to replace those parts. Other than that, we just cleaned up everything else and reused most of it. So it's got a new wand. This one's ready for somebody else to forget about it in their truck and have it freeze, but this one will go to the scrapyard. So don't be afraid to work on your own B&Gs. They're pretty simple. It's just a bunch of parts, and knowing what order and when to do it makes it much easier. So you don't need a lot of tools. I do recommend a vise. It just makes it easier, but I did it for years without it. So on to the next one. So that's it for the cold weather B&G repair. Did want to say thank you guys for watching. Hope you have a good Christmas. Spend some time with your family, hug your little ones, and find a chance to be happy. Appreciate you guys watching. If you haven't yet, do us a favor, post a comment down below, let us know what you think. Subscribe, like, all that crap, and we'll see you on the next one.